Hello, and welcome to Breakthrough.
Here we are back again. We missed talking with you and seeing you. So it's good to be back, and happy Easter.
Yeah, we had a little pause there as we were jumping into the final weeks of Lent, and now we're here in the Easter season, and wonderful, joyful season. But there's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot of heartache. And so today's conversation here, we're going to be looking specifically at the bridge collapse, as so much is coming forward. And I also want to just acknowledge too that there's Sister Joan and I, when we were discussing gathering back for this, it almost was like too much of a list of issues and pains, and as you call them, ills,
Right.
in the world recently, that our hearts are full and our prayers are full with so many of the things going on in the world. But this story in particular really did something for all of us. So I'm going to jump in with a quote here, and then we'll a little quote that I found from America Media, Kevin Clark. I thought this was really moving and captured what we were feeling. I can't be the only person who has noticed that all the men who died on the Key Bridge collapse were immigrants from Mexico and Central America, members of a workforce quietly doing a lot of the heavy lifting that keeps the North American economy humming.
Right. And when we think back to all of our families, our immigrant beginnings, right, as we came to the shores of what we now call the United States, welcomed by the indigenous people here, and rolled up our sleeves and worked hard, to help build the country, build community. And we still want to work at that with a welcoming heart. So we see the faces of our brothers who, while at work to keep things moving in the Baltimore harbor, perished on that fateful night when that cargo ship accident happened and took down the bridge. And so let's just pause a moment and look into their eyes and behold their faces and hold them and their families in our hearts as we call them by name and uphold the respect and dignity of their life. Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes,
Miguel Luna,
Menor Yacir Suavo Sandoval,
Dorian Castillo Cabrera,
Jose Manuel Lopez,
Carlos Hernandez.
All very young men in their prime with families, working again for all of us here in the United States and working to support and provide for their families.
Yeah, it was really powerful when this happened, how quickly things started to come out about, once it was revealed who the men were, how quickly their families came forward to talk about them and say who they were. You almost feel like there's a collective embrace by people to say, to prove a point and saying, like, these are the people that are moving the economy, that are working so hard.
Right.
This is such an interesting thing. This bridge collapse is such a loss on so many levels. One, it's a huge bridge. It's really important to an area, but also the movement of cargo through that area is very, very important. But then also what this says about the state of immigration in our country and the way that we look at it. I mean, it just feels like it's always so sad. And we saw this too, similarly with, the police officer, Jonathan Diller, who also passed away this past week. You see these moments where a life can be lost, someone so tragically, but then they can also turn into these huge conversation starters and these watershed moments for us to have breakthroughs,
right,
of just the awareness of the fragility of the human experience.
And it's so often that in a time of tragedy is when our inherent movement towards oneness really shows itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, wow, could we continue to be so intentional and natural about that movement in the day to day, where we would be
Mm.
more open and accepting and respecting of each other and of life for sure.
Yeah, and you know, the grace of work too. I mean, these men were working, doing work that's not easy. You know, filling up potholes on a bridge, doing the graveyard shift because they needed to get it done. They had all just taken their breaks in their cars,
Mm-hmm.
um, and doing work that's not, you know, not sexy, not exciting. It's just the work that has to get done. Most of these guys work in multiple jobs, um, and how, you know, how often do we see folks doing those jobs that we don't necessarily want to do, or we never see ourselves doing, but are
Right.
so vital.
Yeah. I remember a few years back being up at a conference in the Minneapolis area and visiting some of the dairy farms up there,
Mm,
and speaking with one farmer who was really concerned with the manner and the rhetoric of shutting down the border.
mm,
And he was saying, if I don't have those migrant workers,
mm,
I'm not going to be able to process this. And then people are not going to get milk. I need them because they are going to do the work that a typical person in the United States does not want to do. But they're very happy to do it and they're very good at it.
mm,
So we forget how much the immigrant population really support and keep the economy going. And you know, the Pew Research showed that in the last 10 years, the labor force of immigrant workers has grown by just under 8%. You know, which is pretty huge. So it shows that as people come here for a variety of reasons and cross borders, uh, they're not just sitting around. You
yeah.
know, they're getting up and they're doing the work that needs to be done. And especially as, you know, the baby boom generation begins to go into retirement, who is going to take these places? And they're finding that the immigrants and their children, if we offset their population, it's going to be a problem for the workforce. And so there goes the economy. However, as they come in and they take the jobs, you know, then we have another breakthrough moment where they're filling these positions or creating new ones, and
Mm,
they will be adding to the workforce.
yeah. I mean, we all can sit here and think of people in our lives that we encounter who are the immigrant laborers, who are doing this work that, you know, and it's unfortunate that it takes moments like these for us to maybe have the breakthrough.
Mhm.
Um, but an opportunity here right now through the lives of these men for us to, one, say their names, right?
Yes.
See their faces here. Um, then go read about their families. And you know, I saw one of the photos. I think it was Maynor, um, who was, you know, at a pool with his daughter,
Mm.
and you know, seeing, and it's just, your heart hurts for the
Yes.
families. Um, and this is just the reality. And this is not even, you know, this is a story of a horrible accident, but this is only just a drop in the bucket of the amount of abuse that immigrant laborers face, the way that they could be taken advantage of, and the work, um, and so it's just a huge moment for us really to collectively gather in prayer, um, see these faces, really sit and reflect on, um, what part of the conversation am I in? Am I, you know, I don't, we don't get too political on this program here because it's
Right.
not, that's not our thing. But we hear politicians using rhetoric of saying, you know, poisoning the country, poisoning, you know, the blood of our whatever, this terminology of this or that. And I just, yeah, I don't, I can't get on board with that. I can't
Yeah, it's
understand it.
hard to hear. It's hard to hear
Yeah.
when that's not truth, you know. And you know, there is about two-thirds of the American people who say that immigrants strengthen the country
Country, yeah,
because of their hard work and their talents.
yeah.
So two-thirds is a very big percentage. You know, it's the other third, you know, how do we bring them along to say, hey,
Hmm.
they're here doing their share as well.
Yeah, Kevin from America, Clark, he wrote a really lovely piece here. It's a short take, so it's a pretty simple piece, but he ended it with this line. I encourage anyone to go check it out, but um, I am unhappily confident that immigrant workers, like the men who died in the Key Bridge, will continue to be vilified as the campaign season heats up this year. I am just as confident that in a few decades' time, their descendants will, like me, be marveling in pride and gratitude at their self-sacrifice and courage.
Yeah.
What a poetic line about
Yeah.
just being aware of the place in history, and that decades from now, yeah, we will be looking back and saying, this is the muscle and the heart and the brains that have made us into the whatever the America is of the future.
Right, right. And before this tragic accident, these are the men, the immigrant people, our neighbors, our sisters and our brothers who bridge,
Yeah.
our lives so that transportation can happen, so that we can get food on our tables, so that we can get all the other necessities that we need day in and day out.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, it's heavy stuff, but important. And I keep going back and forth between this heartache, heartbreak, and the sadness, but then also the grace that's within this of it's a real opportunity, an invitation to be in the right side of this conversation, and to be
Yeah.
and so hopefully everyone viewing this, one, you see these names here that we're keeping up on the screen.
Right.
Pray for their families, but also pray for the stirring within your heart that maybe next time you hear a rhetoric, you hear something, you see an opportunity to be a voice and have a conversation, you do so. And we all have a responsibility to do that. And I want to share this too. I'm just the quote master today here. But there was some really lovely pieces that were coming out from people using this opportunity to lift up these six men. But Will Bunch from the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote this in reference to one, I won't name the politician, but one politician who had once been quoted saying that immigrants were poisoning the blood of our country. And this is what Will Bunch said. The workers who died in the bridge collapse were not poisoning the blood of our country. They were replenishing it. They may have been born all over the continent, but when these men plunged into our waters on Tuesday, they died as Americans.
Mm. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and it's so hopeful to hear reporters, reporting the news as such. And, to hear that they died as Americans, they died as human beings, as our sisters and brothers, and we're so one. And it reminds me really what comes to that line in our consensus statement, the family of Joseph words that says we're always moving towards profound love of God and love of neighbor without distinction, and from whom we do not separate ourselves. So there's no way, if we're created as one, to be one, and that inherent movement towards oneness, that we can separate ourselves from the loss of these men, from the suffering and the emptiness that their families now feel, and so that we have to continue to be one with them as we continue to hold them in our hearts and prayers.
Well, great to be with you as always, Sister Joan.
Yes, Christian, thank you.
Share these images here, and everyone watching, take the time to go do a little research yourself and learn about some new folks to pray for. So,
Yeah.
So God bless. Have a great day and weekend.
Okay, see you next week. Take good care.